Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Rose Tinted Ceilings podcast. Today we have a special guest, Jenny. Would you like to give a quick introduction?
Sure. Hi, my name's Jennie Vinson. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I am the director of social enterprise for a nonprofit that helps homeless kids or kids who are at risk of homelessness with all different kinds of services, whether that's helping them get their GED, getting housing, or what basically any kind of need met that they may have.
Hmm. Oh, that's so cool. That sounds so impactful, actually. I'm
You
glad
know,
someone
it
that is out
it
there.
is. And it was a big career pivot for me, which is something, that I think it'll be fun to talk about today. I started my career. I mean, I graduated from high school a long time ago, I will say. But I started my career um, thinking that I was just going to save the world and that everything was going to and I was never going to do a job where I felt like I was selling out. And my first job out of college, I worked for the American Cancer Society, which was really, really great. Um, but then I got this opportunity to work for a company, and that put me on a career path that really was kind of the definition of selling out, right? Where I started to make a lot of money. I was working for big global enterprise companies doing marketing and communications. And when COVID hit, I just was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this. I want to do work that means something. And I was having, my son was a third grader. And so I was having to teach him at the same time. I was trying to manage, 100 Zoom calls a day. And I just was like, I can't, I just need to stop. And so I consulted. I went out on my own and started my own business for a couple of years. And then I, um, decided to throw my hat in the ring for this really cool opportunity at the nonprofit New Avenues for Youth that I mentioned, and was fortunate enough to get that job. So it was a
So,
big change for me
uh,
to make this, to pivot to a nonprofit locally based when I was used to, flying to Paris to meet my boss and stuff in um, my previous job.
yeah, what kind of challenges did you feel like you faced during that pivot? How do you overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like we talked about, one of the big things that I wish I had learned early in my career and even, when I was in high school is that you don't have to stay in a job that you don't like. And for a lot of years, I felt like I gotta, prove that I can do it. I gotta, you know, if it's going to look bad on my resume, if I only stay somewhere for a year or this boss is teaching me, you know, they may be a jerk, but they're teaching me how to, be resilient. And, what I've realized in my career is that it's not true. You don't have to stay in a place or in a job that doesn't feel good, that doesn't isn't and feeling good isn't just that, like, oh, it's all light and rosy. It's that if it's not giving you what you need for that next step in your life. So whether that's giving you some experience or giving you financial stability that'll allow you to maybe go back to school, or as long as it's furthering your goals, like, stick it out. But as soon as it's like you're waking up in the morning going, oh my God, I can't handle this, like, bail, right? Because there are lots and lots of opportunities. And it's just, I wish that when I was younger in my career, I had, you know, made some of those choices sooner.
Mm. Well, looking back, do you regret ever going on that little career path shift, or do you think like, oh, I'm glad I did that for any reason? Like, what's your thoughts looking back on that?
I have no regrets about the career pivots that I've made. Um, where I do have some regret is that I didn't make them sooner, right? Like that I didn't stand up for myself, and say, you know what, I don't want to be treated this way. I had a boss, and this was my second job. I was probably in my mid 20s, and she was so bad and so mean, and I knew it, and I couldn't understand it, and and I, like, every day I would be like, okay, like, you can do it, Jenny, just one more day. And and I was silently wishing that I would, um that I could get the courage to quit, but it was scary because you want to be financially independent. You don't want to call your parents and be like, I just quit my job, so can you help me with my rent. um But what I have learned, and this is the truth, is that with every job I've had, probably, I mean, I've graduated from college in 2000, so I have 23 years kind of business experience, which sound like blows my mind that it's that long. But and I've probably had 6 different jobs during that time. And with every job I've taken, I've made more money and I've gotten more responsibility. And so it was always, I've always been very strategic, which is another thing that I would say, like, I don't think I realized that I was doing it at the time, but I would say, if I was young again, and I would tell you, like, be strategic. Think about, like, what's your next step? How does this job that you're taking, maybe it's like seems weird, like, because you're going to take a job at a yogurt shop or something, and it's like, well, your future is not in a yogurt shop probably, but maybe you're there to learn customer service skills because you want to do something that's going to require, or you're going to become a manager at the yogurt shop because you want to put that on your resume. But always be thinking about what is the strategic next step for you. And I think that, and sometimes you just need a job, and it's just going to be sucky, and you just take it and you do it. Um and maybe that job allows you to go to school, or maybe that job allows you to work on your side hustle, right? Like, the job is like, well, but it's giving you the opportunity, because you only have, you only have to use half your brain for that job. You get to use the other half of your brain for your passion project that you actually want to bring forward. So, always looking for the opportunity in whatever is kind of coming your way.
Jenny, I love that you spoke towards being really intentional with the steps you take. I think that's so important, and I love your story behind that. And I also want to ask you to talk about how finding your passion is important and really loving what you do. How do you think somebody could find that passion if we don't know what it is yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think trying lots of things, right? Don't limit yourself. I think, you know, um, like, I have a seventh grader, and I'm kind of amazed at how, in this day and age, the expectation is for children to um, pick a lane and stay in it. Like, you decide to play baseball, so you're playing baseball, and you better have started when you were 5, or or the flute, or tennis, or like, whatever it is. I think we put this expectation on young people that they have to have it all figured out. And I, like, are you allowed to swear on this podcast? I don't know.
Go
I,
ahead.
Good.
I kind of swear a lot, but I mean, I kind of call bullshit on that. Like, I think that, following your passions, taking opportunities where you see them. I mean, when I when I left the American Cancer Society, I got an opportunity to work for a restaurant chain, and it was crazy because they were like, "We want you to be in charge of all of the seasonal items on our menu," and I was like, I know nothing of this. Like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, you'll figure it out. And so I figured it out. And, I think, one of my mottos, and I think that this is a great thing for young people to think about is, how you can pull like oracle cards, right? Like cards that like, you know, tell you your fortune or just give you a positive message for the day. Well, one of my favorites is a card that says act as if. And that's really my motto. It's like when you get into a room, like act as if you belong there. Act as if you know what you're talking about. And it's amazing how that can really build confidence, right? Because you walk in and you're like, I don't know how to create a cherry milkshake. But I'm like, but like, what if I did? What would I do? Like, what would I do? What would be the first thing I would do? Like, well, I would figure out what ingredients do we need, right? And I would find the people maybe who could help me do that, right? And I would lean on their experience, but I would act as if I knew that that was what the plan was, right? And I think it's some people say it's fake it till you make it. But I don't think it's faking. I think it's actually embodying that which you want to be. And that builds confidence in yourself. And it also creates confidence for the other people in you, right? Because they're like, well, here comes this person who, I've asked her to do this. And she's like, yeah, like, I don't know exactly how to do it, but I'm here to figure it out, right? And I think that's the other thing that I would say is, something I wish I knew when I was younger, which is like, I wish I knew that it was okay to say that you don't know how to do something, right? I think so often when you're young or in a new position, like you think you got to have it all handled and you can't let anybody see your weaknesses or know that you don't know, what you're doing. And the reality is that there's a lot of power in saying, I'm not sure the right way to do this. And instead of saying, so I'm not going to do it, you say, and let's think about like how we could do it, right? There's a lot of power in knowing what you don't know and owning it and finding the folks who are going to help you get there. And because what I have found in my career is that the majority of people, maybe sans that one boss I was just telling you about, they want to help you. They want to see you succeed. Most people are not jerks. Right? They want you to be successful. And so if you come to them with humility and confidence, right? Like, I really want to solve this problem and I'm really getting stuck. Can you help me? 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to give you a hand.
So not being scared to like reach out to people is kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, nothing gets solved alone, right? I mean, nobody, the people who win Nobel Prizes, they didn't do that alone, right? They had teams and teams and teams of people. They get the credit, but they didn't do it alone. There's really very few things in this world that get done with one person, right? Like,
Yeah.
even if you write the movie and you get an award because you wrote this amazing movie, you have to have really great actresses and actors in order to bring it to life, right? And so there's very, very few things that happen without collaboration. And I think oftentimes, especially young people, are scared, right? Because it's like, what if they say no? Or what if this is a dumb question? Or what if I should know? And I think that if you do your best and you do your research and you are like, gosh, I really want to solve this, but I don't know how to do it. When you ask, like I said, 9 times out of 10, someone's going to want to lend a hand.
Why do you think people are so scared to ask now? Like, is it always been just kids are scared to ask, or is it like kids are getting more and more scared to ask every single day as the generations pass by? Like, where do you think the
Yeah,
problem stems from?
I don't know. I mean, I think that part of the culture in America, right, is this like rugged individualism. And again, I call BS on that because nothing happens alone. There is no one person. I can't think of one. I don't know if you guys can think of a person who has single-handedly done anything of meaning in the world. I mean maybe Michelangelo painted these amazing things, right? But certainly he had people helping him, right? I mean, so I mean, I'm sure that somebody in your audience can find an outlier.
You're inching to prove you're
Because
wrong.
Comment below.
someone sails across the ocean alone, or swims across the English Channel, but again, those people had support, right? There, like I said, you'll never find somebody who's done something without other people. And I think, like I said, I think sometimes our culture says that, not knowing something is, not knowing something is like a bad thing. And, I mean, a lot of that is like, again, like patriarchal old man bullshit. And I think young women today are a lot more, there's so much more opportunity for young women today
Mhm.
to just say, like, I'm not doing it the way my parents did it. And that's one thing I think that's an awesome opportunity. I mean, when I was in high school, which, 25 years ago, like, I didn't know any gay kids. Like, kids didn't come out in high school, right? Kids weren't allowed to be themselves in the way that they are in most, I mean, not all places. I guess there's still that, homophobia and stuff, but it's so much more accepted than it ever was when I was a kid. And I think that young people have the power and are going to continue to um, be themselves in a way that, like, my generation didn't have. That's not how we were brought up, right? So I would say, like, lean into that, like, lean into who you are, lean into your values, into your culture, own your differences, whether it's your gender. Sorry, I think am I back?
Yeah.
You're good.
But own your gender or your race or your abilities, like, because, like, that's what actually, like, that's what's called
Mhm.
for in this world today.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you really emphasized embracing our uniqueness,
Mm.
but also seeking support from other people. We don't
Mhm.
have to be all alike to support each
Yeah,
other. I
I
really like.
don't. I think people kind of think these two things are mutually exclusive. Like, if you're super unique, then you gotta be, you gotta be different from everyone else. You can't be unique and make unique change with having support. Like after what you said, it's kind of like, you can do both. And I think that's really nice.
Yeah, I mean, and isn't it like so much more fun to think about it that way? Like, I mean, I think that that's one of the things, when I left corporate America in 2020 and went out on my own, it was very lonely, to be honest, like being your own consultant and having to know all the answers, and clients hire you to like tell them what to do.
Mm.
And it really was hard for me to be like, I'd like look at the wall and be like, well, what do you think we should do? Because I'm like talking to myself. And I just really recognize the value of other people's opinions and their thoughts, and um, the perspectives that you gain when you aren't so rigid about what it is you think you should or could be doing.
Mhm. I know that is really nice. I'm glad that you don't regret anything. Like you mentioned, like you said, how you did go off on this a little tangent that you decided wasn't right for you and came back. I think a lot of the times, especially high schoolers, they'll make a mistake like that, and they'll be like, "It's over for me now. There's no
Yeah.
coming back from this." But now you did come back from this, and you're doing something you love, and you're telling us about it, and you're sharing that advice. So I think that's a message in itself that you come back
Yeah.
stronger.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like it's like I said, I'm just now kind of, I feel like I'm re-entering high school now that I have my child is, thinking, trying to decide where he wants to go to high school, and if he's going to go to a private school or a public school, and you know, blah blah blah. And it feels so like, it does feel very like fatalistic. Like the decisions feel very life and death. Like if I don't pass this test, I won't get an A. And then if I don't get an A, I won't get into this college. And if I don't get into this college, and it's like, I will tell you, I will tell you guys a funny story. I went to University of Oregon and I graduated in 2000. And I walked, across the thing, had the cap, got the, had the case, the diploma case. And then I never got my diploma. And I was like, well, that's weird. But I thought it must have gone to my parents' house,
Mhm.
right? Like, and I never thought about it again. And so maybe like in 2008, so 8 years later, I was going to apply for graduate school. And so I
Mm.
called University of Oregon because I needed to get my transcripts. And I said, oh, I'm Jenny. I graduated in 2000. I need my transcript. And they're like, Jenny, you didn't graduate.
What?
And I was like, say what? Like, I know I did graduate. I walked across the thing. I had a graduation party. I've had a job for 8 years at two different places now. And they're like, yeah, no, we have no record of you graduating. They're like, you should call your major, call your department because there must be an issue. And so I called my department, and they're like, yeah, no, you fulfilled all the requirements. So I called the registrar's office back and I said, why, like, what's happening? And they were like, Jenny, did you fill out the paperwork to apply for graduation? And I was like, well, I guess not. And they were like, yeah, we don't have any record that you actually applied for graduation. And so I did, but what happens when you do that is that you apply for that term. So even though I hadn't been in school for 8 years, my college diploma actually says I graduated in spring of 2008. I started in 1995,
Wow, I
right?
didn't even know that you had to
Me
apply to
neither.
graduate.
No, neither did I. And I share that with you because it doesn't matter. Nobody in 25 years of my job experience. Now, this isn't true for all careers, right? Nobody has ever asked me if I graduated, actually. They've never checked my transcripts. Nobody has ever done that. And so certainly, I mean, if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, or there's certain things that you want to be, like that would maybe be problematic, but there's lots of screw ups. Like, and that's again, I think another thing that I wish I had known in high school. You can screw up and like nobody cares, right? Like nobody has ever asked me my college GPA, my high school GPA, my, and I, you know, have made, I make a healthy 6-figure salary. It's not like I've gone to work at, somewhere, where I make minimum wage or something. Like I have been very, very successful and nobody has ever cared anything about any of the things that I think a lot of young people are like trained to really care about, right? Like you're told you have to care about it, but I would like be like, well, I mean, maybe like you should care, but it really kind of depends, right? Like, and I think you got to really focus on what it is that you do need to care about because all of it isn't important. Only some of it, you know?
So would you say that it's more about finding out what you value then?
Yeah. Yeah. And like if going to medical school is your goal, well, then there are certain choices that you need to make that are different than if you want to be an artist, right? Or if you want to be, I mean, like me, a businesswoman. Like, I will tell you, I said I have no regrets. I do have one regret. And that is that I never finished graduate school. I do wish I had gotten my MBA. Um, but like not enough to go do it now.
Just a
I
little
wish
bit.
I had done it, when I was much younger. Um, but again, it's like really understanding and going back to where I started, like understanding your intention, right? Like what's your intention? If your intention is to go to Harvard Law School, first I would be like, why? Right? Like really why? Like why is that super important to you to go to Harvard Law School when there's 50 million other law schools? And at the end, you're all going to be lawyers, right? Like at the end, maybe Harvard certainly has a cachet, but you really have to understand like what is your motivation and what are you trying to achieve and really do no more and no less than what's necessary to achieve those goals.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Like, first of all, there's so much advice to take out of this episode, but one of the main ones, and I know it's going to stick with me, is remember to apply for graduation. I'm glad you shared that one.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, I don't think it's the same thing in high school, but I will tell you in high school, this is another, I don't have my high school diploma either because my parents couldn't afford to pay for my swim fee or something, and they wouldn't release their diploma until they could pay the dues, which I hope they've like cleaned
Oh
that
my
up
gosh.
in 25 years. But again, it doesn't matter because no one's ever asked me for it. I don't care. I mean, I graduated. I just don't have the piece of paper that shows it. So, those things that just feel so, so big in high school, you know, I certainly don't want to diminish like the real feelings that folks have when they're young because those are real, but it's also like really thinking like, okay, in 5 years is this going to matter? Like in 10 years is this going to matter? And even more than that, like given my values, does this matter?
Yeah, it definitely puts it into perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing us today. This is the perfect age range to be telling all this to, so I'm sure our viewers have just as much enjoyment as we did. Any last thing you want to spill out into the universe?
I don't think so. I think it's really amazing that you two are doing this and that you are finding people to talk about interesting topics. I think it's really great. And if there's ever anything I can do, don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. Hope
You're
you have a great
welcome.
evening.
Yeah, thanks.